Welcome to episode number 40, Moshiach, POTUS, and Polished Buttons. Wonder what that's about. Let's dive right in. So, Parshas Mishpatim, to us here on the Greeting Mashiach community, is a very special Parsha. It's one of the most exciting, fundamental, central, world-building, radical siches is that of Mishpatim. We for sure must have spoke about it and referenced it. It's so integral to the whole vision and understanding of this unfolding world of this Greeting Mashiach reality that we live in. What's really going on? Because the Rebbe really takes us behind the scenes a little bit and shows us what happens. Because so often, the Rebbe gave us instructions, we're doing it, and we don't know what's going on. The Rebbe peeled back so many layers and showed us the spiritual plumbing, the spiritual mechanics of what really happens, and the effects of what we're doing, and how that leads to events on the world stage, and eventually the fulfillment of biblical prophecies and the coming of Mashiach. So it's all really, really exciting. So we're not going to go through the Sikh inside, but at least to discuss some of the topics and ideas that were discussed then, how they pertain to now, and some recent controversies from this Sikha that I've recently got some clarification on that I'm just I would love to share with y'all. So
that's very exciting.
That's the agenda for today.
All right, let's jump right in. So what do we got? What do we got for the?
So I'll start with this because it's very geschmack. This one is from Rabbi Wolf, who you guys know we love on this channel.
Yeah.
So he said, most weeks that I've been walking to the Farbrengen with a Chumash. This week that I've been walked in with the New York Times. But it's true. It's true. You opened up the Farbrengen, the very first line, I can read it. It's so strange and exciting. The Rebbe starts off the Farbrengen, and this is edited by the Rebbe. This is the edited version. Beginning of the Farbrengen, no preamble. This is the preamble. It's known that all the events that happen in the world are Shkacha Pratis, and they have what to learn about them in serving Hashem, and certainly big main events that are connected with the big and important countries in which are found the most of the establishment and number of Jews in the world during Geulas, and that they are affecting all the other countries in the world. The big countries, they're the ones that are, have effect on the whole world stage, and the learning a lesson and the lessons from these events are something that's klali, it's general, ikri, and they're very important, and avodas Hashem l'kainai, serving Hashem. So right off the bat, the very first paragraph of the Sikha, the Rebbe tells us, when big news is happening in America, important. Now, there's no need for anyone to follow the news and be obsessively and compulsively following everything. That's just a lot of fun. But the Rebbe is not for, certainly in Bachim and whatnot. That's not something that we're encouraging anyone to do. You should be busy with Torah mitzvahs. But the headlines, what's going on, it'll certainly reach you. And the Rebbe's point is, when something big is if it's important. We have this tendency to just shut ourselves off and pretend like because we want to deal with Torah, it doesn't matter. That's a myth. Whether or not you're koching in it is a separate story. It matters, and it matters tremendously. That's clearly the Rebbe's opinion on world events. And particularly the Rebbe says that most Jews, at least at the time, and most of the establishment of Judaism is found in America, and America is a world power over the most important country in the world. If something happens, it's a big deal. We know every malach in Shemai, every country, it represents. We forget sometimes. There is a spiritual side of things, and it's important. When there's something big happening, there is big things happening spiritually. And people get shocked when people start talking about it. It's like, you didn't know that? You thought it wasn't true? All the stories you read about tzaddikim dealing with things going on in heaven and the countries and the nations and stuff, and averting decrees. You see this relationship between the physical and spiritual worlds in the countries. Like, what you think because we're in the 21st century that's not true anymore? Like, what? No, it's still true. We don't always know exactly what's going on, but the good news is for this particular situation, we have no better resource than the Lubavitcher Rebbe to inform us what's going on behind the curtain. So, this is going to be a crazy sikha, and buckle up your seatbelts.
Yeah.
And what Rebbe spoke about in this was the culmination of what was going on for a long time. And this is this Cold War going on between Russia and the United States. Russia's, this evil force, anti-Judaism, anti-God, anti-basic human rights, anti-basic tzedek, v'yesher, justice, and righteousness. And America is the one fighting against the commies and standing for her freedom. And both of these nations, the reason why it's called the Cold War, for I don't know, the new listeners here who didn't live through it, is because there was not a hot war. There was nobody was firing any shots. It was, America was stockpiling all their weapons and nuclear weapons, and Russia was building up their stockpile. And each one is having more and more weapons, but it didn't actually break out into a war. There were times when it almost did. And there was a whole story once when there was a submarine that thought, there was a Russian submarine that thought there was they sent something and they thought it was America sending off nukes, and they had to make a decision there if they should respond with nukes, which if they did, it would have, been the end of the world, basically. And there was a vote on the ship, and there was a tie-breaking vote not to do it, and that pretty much saved saved everybody. But this was serious. That's my point. To show this was a big deal. And obviously there was all the Yidden behind the Iron Curtain. And the Rebbe had a lot of focus on this. And the Rebbe was prophesying already for a long time that the Iron Curtain is going to fall and that the Yidden were going to be let out of Russia. And there's a lot of stories in this. And it was a process. We're going to talk a little bit about it later as well. But that's the backdrop here. And what was going on now, apparently there was a UN, people got together in the UN from all the nations, including the President of America. He came to the UN. And they were basically resolving that they were going to end this war. There was two things. There was something that happened in Washington, and there was something that happened in the UN, a UN resolution. And the Rebbe spoke about both of them. So the first thing the Rebbe talks about is what happened in the UN. That everyone got together and they said, we're making a new tkufa in world relations. No more fighting. And they said, we're going to reduce our weapons. This was a resolution they did in front of all the representatives of all the countries. Now the Rebbe says, in addition to that, POTUS, I believe it was the State of the Union address or gave a speech. It was H.W. Bush.
The President Bush gives a speech to the United Nations Security Council in the Security Council chamber at the United Nations shortly after noon.
This is that was the first thing. The second, before that, says the Rebbe, though, there was a speech in Washington that he gave.
Yes. President Bush delivers his annual State of the Union address before a joint session of Congress, issues a memorandum for department heads and agency leadership on the decline of government regulation burden.
So the way the Rebbe says it is that part of the money that they're no longer going to be using due to the Cold War ending, that they're going to have peace now. They're not going to be fighting. So all of this stockpiling of weapons, they're not going to need to spend all this money on weapons anymore. So instead, they're going to use it towards the benefit of the people, towards the agricultural things, towards sustaining the people, kakala, to be sustenance for the people.
Can I don't want to interrupt you, but I just pulled up his the address before the joint session.
You have the actual text of the speech? I'll go for it.
We gather tonight at a dramatic and deeply promising time in our history and in the history of man on earth. For in the past 12 months, the world has known changes of almost biblical proportions. And even now, months after the failed coup that doomed a failed system, I'm not sure we've absorbed the full impact, the full import of what happened. But communism died this year. And even as president with the most fascinating possible vantage point, There were times when I was so busy managing progress and helping to lead change that I didn't always show the joy that was in my heart. But the biggest thing that has happened in the world, in my life, in our lives, is this. By the grace of God, America won the Cold War. I mean to speak this evening of the changes that can take place in our country now that we can stop making the sacrifices we had to make when we had an avowed enemy that was a superpower. And now we can look homeward even more and move to set right what needs to be set right.
This is wow. It's fascinating to especially throughout. We'll get back to what you were saying, but throughout these weeks, I think I've personally seen a transformation in this podcast. How we were talking about the general concept of Mashiach in the world and all these things, but then we started getting into actual things that were happening in the world and connecting them and seeing how they're connected. And then here we're talking about the Sikha of Mishpatim that we just read on Shabbos, and it's fascinating because I've never done this, to go and look at what the Rebbe was talking about and read the words of a guy, of a president, talking about what the Rebbe is talking about, how biblical proportions. It's absolutely amazing. It's incredible, this whole thing. Anyways, continue.
So, in this speech that he gave, he discusses how he's going to, this money that he's no longer, like he's saying here, we no longer have to be Moshe Nefesh or whatever he said there to use it for. Instead, we're going to use it for the kakala, for the benefit, for the sustaining, and then give, I'm assuming something with agriculture or something to do with feeding the people in some way. And the Rebbe says this is the literal beginning of the fulfillment of what it says, what it says in Yeshaya, that it's a prophecy about Mashiach. It's not about the Geula. It's about the Geula, but it's something Mashiach himself will do. And this is a very, very important factor. Like I've mentioned before, I believe that the Rebbe was against calling the founding of the state of Israel the Chalta, the Geula, the beginning of the redemption, because the redemption, as the Rebbe so often says, is Ayedei Mashiach Tzekenu, which through Malach HaMashiach. This is another important point we're going to talk about a little bit later, God willing, that Mashiach himself, the person, is integral to this process. And this is a prophecy about Mashiach. So the Rebbe's point when it came to Israel was Mashiach was not the one doing it, so it's not the Geula. These are people who are against Torah mitzvahs, as a matter of fact. So you cannot call that the beginning of the Geula. And this, the Rebbe was saying, is a prophecy. There's a prophecy about Mashiach, that he's going to do something. And this prophecy, says the Rebbe, is actually written on the wall of the UN. This is their mission statement, this pasuk. And it says, they're going to beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning, to prune the trees. The nation will not war against will not rise up another one with the sword, and they will no longer teach war. This is the prophecy, and this is something that Malach HaMashiach will affect. He's going to make it happen. And this is something the Rebbe points out, this diak, that it's Mashiach is the one who makes it happen. And says the Rebbe, just take a look at what's happening right now. The people in the nations are doing exactly that. They're deciding in the UN, and they're all getting rid of they're going to stop fighting the wars, and that's it. We're going to enter a new age of peace. And the president of America is discussing that we're no longer going to have. We're going to literally beat the swords into plowshares. We're going to take the funding that we're using for the swords, for the weapons, and we're going to use it for sustaining the people. This is literally the fulfillment, says the Rebbe, of this prophecy through Malach HaMashiach. And the Rebbe says this is because of, you have to understand how this works, says the Rebbe. You need some context. War is very stupid, says the Rebbe, in not so many words, a little bit nicer language maybe. It's something that doesn't make any sense. Let's say we get into a disagreement. So what happens? You talk it out. If you can't talk it out, you go to court. You go to a friend, somebody who's smart, somebody wise, somebody who could settle the score. all war really is a fight that get out of hand. One guy said, I want this piece of land. I think by right it belongs to us. I mean, we need it, Greenland is ours. We need it. We need it for national security. It's ours, And then you have the other side says, no, you can't have it. It's ours. What are you talking about? You have a disagreement. So what do? You settle it. Well, what happens when you can't settle it? So one guy says, oh yeah. The other guy says, oh yeah. And you end up fighting and you can't settle it. And you end up like you see now in Russia and Ukraine with hundreds of thousands of people dying. And in the end, you're going to reach some sort of resolution that you would have reached up anyways. And there was no point. You might as well have flipped a coin or just saw who had bigger armies and settled it. Like, actually fighting a war is very not productive for anybody. So what's the point? It never made any sense to fight a war. It was always really it's not from all the ideas people have had, and we've had a lot of good ideas. Wars are not one of them, says the Rebbe. It just doesn't make any sense. And yet, for all of human history, people have been fighting wars. This is throughout all places and all times. War has followed the human race. Until after World War II. That was the war to end all wars. The world decided we have to make a UN, and we're ending it. We're going to have peace. Obviously, it didn't work, but and the UN is literally the worst. But nobody thought this way. This wasn't even a thought. Nobody was thinking to do that. Says the Rebbe, do you know why they're thinking to do that? This is the effect of thousands of years of Torah and mitzvahs. This is the effect of, more particularly, of the Rebbe spoke. There was a connection with the Friedrich Rebbe and the Rebbe coming to America, to this lower hemisphere, the Western hemisphere, where there was no Matan Torah to bring, because Matan Torah happened on the Eastern hemisphere, and they brought with them Matan Torah to the Western hemisphere, the revelation of the Torah to this part of the world. After so many years in Gaulos, we've literally changed the world. And, Leiv Mlacha Mesarim Yad Hashem, the hearts and the minds of the nations, of the kings of the nations, is in the hands of Hashem. And he put into their heads this idea, now is the time for freedom. Now is the time to stop fighting. This is a new concept that came because of Torah, because of the Jews. The Jews control the world. And more particularly because of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe says that they made the UN building. They thought up the idea in 1942, close to the time when the Rebbe came to America. And they actually made the current building that they have today in 1951, which is the year that the Rebbe doesn't say what happened, but that's the year that the Rebbe accepted the leadership, became the Nasi. The Rebbe connects these dots. That's what, meaning it's connected with Melech HaMashiach. It's connected with the Rebbe. That's why they decided to change. That's what put it into their heads to do this. Now this is amazing, and the Rebbe's taking credit for this. And the Rebbe says, what's going on now is Pu'ulasai Haschalas, Pu'ulasai Shal Melech HaMashiach Alam. And this is a big statement. This is the beginning of the effect of Melech HaMashiach on the world. I told you before, the problem with Israel is that Mashiach didn't do it. The Rebbe is saying, because there's no Mashiach. The Rebbe said, it can't be because there's nobody who's B'chaskas Mashiach. There's nobody who's qualified to be Mashiach right now, who fits the criteria. Meaning, it was
just not.
Maybe there's people righteous enough, but there's nobody who actually did the criteria. So there's no Mashiach. Mashiach didn't do what happened in Israel. Goyim did whatever. Fraya Yidden did it. The UN did it. It's not Mashiach. Says the Rebbe, and it's obvious the context is because Chai Sarah and Vayera, a few weeks before, the Rebbe spoke how Mashiach was actually tasked with the job to take the Yidden out of Golos. Now Mashiach is actually here and revealed in this world. I can only assume that's the context here, although the Rebbe does not say it clearly. But the Rebbe says, now we have the beginning of the pull of Melech HaMashiach on the world. Mashiach is the one affecting this. Mashiach is the one who made this happen. Says the Rebbe, it's through Mashiach who sent out shluchim all over the world and are changed, purified and elevated the world. Now it's a world where this can happen, and now we have the beginning of these prophecies. Who's making them do it? It's the shluchim. It's the Rebbe. It's Mashiach. The Rebbe says this is literally the pool of Mashiach. So if you're wondering, if anyone says if the Rebbe says that he's Mashiach or not, I don't know, but I know that there's a fellow Mashiach who's around, who's sent out shluchim, who's making these changes in connection. Anyways, yeah. So to say that the Rebbe is saying that he's Mashiach is so obvious at this point. If you're like learning these sichas, people who say that the Rebbe didn't say that he's Mashiach are either being intentionally obtuse or obtruse, whatever the word is, intentionally thick,
Obtuse.
or they're just ill-informed. They're just simply not aware. We didn't come in Yom Gimel and take advantage of the son of the Rebbe and start singing Yechid. That's not what happened. There's a lot of context there. And the Rebbe connects it. The Rebbe says, do you know where this happened? The Rebbe, each part of what happened, the Rebbe connects it with what's special about this relating to Mashiach. It happened on a Friday, and Friday is the Rebbe starts bringing in a Muslim that Friday eats from both sides, from Mashiach and Geula, like a fox. Apparently grabs from both sides, whatever that means, and it's connected to the place where it happened. It happened in New York City. This is the place of the Nasi Adar. They think it happened because that's where the UN is. Says the Rebbe, do you know why the UN is in New York? Because that's where the Rebbe is. You thought it was because, it can't be in a capital city because it should be in a neutral place. Yeah, whatever. It's because the Rebbe is there, says the Rebbe. That's why the UN, the mission statement of Melech HaMashiach, this idea that the UN represents to bring peace into the world, it's in New York City. It's the place of the Nasi Adar. That's why. In the place of Beis Rabbeinu Shabbat, it's in the same city as 770, from where the world changes. You know, we're the powerhouse of the entire world. Where does the whole world get changed from? Where is the building that makes, the Rebbe says, it's the place, the shul of the Nasi Adar, Beis Rabbeinu Shabbat, 770. That's where it all happens. Amazing things. And the Rebbe references a number of times in the Sikha when he's discussing the Friedrich Rebbe that he's the Mashiach Shabbat, that he was the one in his generation who was the one who was righteous enough to be Mashiach. So even though there was no, there's the concept, right? Every generation there's the one who, if Mashiach comes, his generation, it'll be him. So what the Friedrich Rebbe did is also kind of, so to speak, the effects of Mashiach, and more particularly to the Rebbe, because the Rebbe didn't obviously talk about this for 40 years. It's not something the Rebbe discussed. But now that Mashiach is fully revealed, the Rebbe says, okay, so the Friedrich Rebbe and the Rebbe, which was really one to see us, the Friedrich Rebbe was the Mashiach of his generation, and the Rebbe is the Mashiach of our generation. And more than that, like the Rebbe actually says in the Sikha Lashon, Nesi Dereinu Mashiach Tzkeinu. The Nasi Adar, Mashiach Tzkeinu. No qualifiers. Nesi Dereinu Mashiach Tzkeinu. So now that the Rebbe is fully revealed as a Mashiach, you could say what's been the story the whole time, that the Rebbe has been acting in his capacity as the Mashiach Shabbat and actually doing the steps. And now things are finally coming to a head. And we're making progress. And we see the beginning of these prophecies happening through Mashiach. And the Rebbe talks about the date that it happened, a lot of different Ramazim. This is another thing. People say, what are you looking at all these Ramazim and all these things? And the Rebbe literally did this. And you could say, who knows if you're right? Yeah, we don't know. But this is not a foreign concept. This is something the Rebbe did. The Rebbe said it's important. The Rebbe starts off the whole sikh with this is the main and in kloli ve'ikri, and it's important to learn lessons from these things. When there's a big event happening, it's important. Anyways, then you have another very, very important thing. And this was the thing that has a lot of controversy. And I want to talk about this as well. The Rebbe discussed a psak din. The Rebbe says, why is this happening now? Why is it that it's going into the heads of the people? So the Rebbe, like we spoke before, that it's entering into their minds to do this. This is because the Geula is unfolding now. And why is that happening? All happened. Says the Rebbe, it's because first of all, we have the psak din of the Friedrich Rebbe, who told us that we finished Avodah, which means that it's time for the Geula to happen. And more recently, says the Rebbe, we have the psak din of, according to the Rebbe's lashon here, the Rebbe says, according to this, we could say that this achlata and the announcement of the leader of the world, the leaders of the world, the Erev Shabbos Mishpatim, about the beating the swords into plowshares, is an effect of who are the kings? These are the rabbis who say that Mashiach is coming. Beginning with the psak in the Friedrich Rebbe, the Nasi of our generation, that we already finished Avodah and we're ready for the Geula. We're ready to be Mekabel Pnei Mashiach Tzkeinu. And then the Rebbe says like this, and this is a very, very interesting lashon, and so I'll just read it. The psak din of the Rabbanim and Miriam of the Yidden, Shehigias man Geula, and this is in bold, that the time of the Geula has arrived. Comma. Then the Rebbe quotes from the Rambam, Yamad Melech Meis David, the king will arise from the house of David, etc. And etc. is the rest of the qualifications of this person that the Rebbe says, quotes from the Rambam, that a person who does this is B'chaska Shu Mashiach. He has the presumption that he's Mashiach. The Ad says the Rebbe, and until the Maimed Matziv Arei the Mashiach B'vadai. Which the Rambam continues to say the rest of the qualifications of what Mashiach needs to do. He has to build a Beis Hamikdash, he has to actually win the wars, he has to collect all the Yidden to Eretz Yisrael. End quote of the Rambam. Then the Rebbe says this is a psak from Sinai that actually penetrated into this world until that it actually affected the leaders of the world, that they decided of their own accord. Because Mashiach is not forcing, it's not this magical forcing everyone and dumping it on their head. I'm Mashiach, and he waves a magic wand and everything is glorious. This is what Mashiach is, that the nations of the world are in their own heads. It makes sense to them logically. You change the very fabric and logic of what's logic, what's morality. That changes. Now morality is a different thing. All the nations of the world say, hey, let's not fight wars. That's because it is psaked in. So, the reason this is very, first of all, it's fantastic. But the reason that this is very contentious is because the Rebbe, people often quote the Sikha to say that the Rebbe is saying that he's B'chaskas Mashiach. Because you read there, the Rebbe says, a psaktin, Fenabanim, that he gives man Geula, the time of Geula arrived, and the Rebbe quotes the whole Rambam. Yeah, that the B'chaskas Mashiach, and Mashiach, Va'ad, that he's Mashiach B'vadai. But the problem with saying that the Rebbe is saying that is, the Rebbe follows it up with saying until there is Mashiach B'vadai. And I have a very difficult time saying that the Rebbe is Mashiach B'vadai because he didn't build a Beis Hamikdash and he didn't do Kibbutz Galias. And 770 as the Remez for when the Beis Hamikdash came, it doesn't count for those who want to say that, because that's the Remez and not don't try to go there. Anyways, so what's going on over here? So I already suspected this for a while what the pshat is, but somebody posted a psak which from Shavuos Tafshin and Aleph that Rabbanim were signing then, and this must be what the Rebbe is referring to.
Hey yes, being shekvar yatsa mitachas yadeinu kama mehachoismim meachasumim mata psak din barer al piteras ms shetzrich aliyas beis Mashiach tzedkeinu bin Beis Hamikdash ashlishi take of miyad mamish. So there was already a psak din.
That's the key factor here. They're paskening
right
that now is the time.
There's two psak dins. There was a psak din before that now is the time for Mashiach to come and the third Beis Hamikdash to be built. Why? Because this is all based on kvar kol hakitzin v'am Yisrael kvar osu tshuva v'gam neskaimu sha'ar atanoim hadrushim levias Mashiach tzedkeinu, all the pre whatever it's happen. Correct, are already done, and therefore it's time. Before psak din hanal, that was the first psak. V'rabi migdolei ha'poiskim shebaderenu mikol hachugim mikol pinas ha'olam mitztarfu v'chosma psak din zeh hinei. In continuation from that psak din, according to the psak din Baruch Shel Rambam that we mentioned from Hilchas Malachim Perek Yud Aleph Halacha Daled of this Im Yamin Belach Beis David, the psak din continues Hare Baruch. It's very clear al pi din Teiras emes shechol al kved kedusha sad mishlit halacha zu de bechaskas shu Mashiach shari niskayim bekved kedusha sad mishlit kol atraim amnuim meram manal. So this the psak din.
So the psak is doing two things.
So 1 second, let me finish. So since al pi din terasino hakadosha kvar higia esa geula, the time of the redemption is already here. Ke piskei dinim shel gdolei haposkim didirenu kanal, according to the psak dins of the great poskim of our generation, as was mentioned previously. V'chak ad mashlita kibel piskei dinim elu la'alacha. The Rebbe accepted them as halacha. Kfi she'amar kame pa'amim berabim beisis vados. Zois Eimeres. This is telling us shekvar nigmar hashlav v'chol hapratim michaskas Mashiach. It already finished the period of and all the details of chaskas Mashiach. Imkein baruch shal pi din teresin hakadosha, according to the holy halacha lemaisa shekvar higia ha'es l'kiyum ha'hemshech halacha zu. It has come the time to fulfill the continuation of this halacha. Ta'alich geulasim shel Yisrael bepoyel mamish hamistayim bevinyan Beis Hamikdash v'kibbutz nidchei Yisrael. So the psak din is really that becheskas Mashiach is done. Kvar kol hakitzin It's the time of the Geula. Mashiach is supposed to be here, and all of that has been completed, and now the Psak Din is that it should continue to become Mashiach Vadai through building the Beis Hamikdash and Kibbutz Nidchei Yisrael.
So, right. So this is, first of all, Gavaldik. And the fact that the Rebbe references the Psak Din obviously means he agrees with it. So, before we get into the weeds about what the Rebbe is or isn't saying in the Sikha, the fact that the Rebbe references this Psak Din as being a valid, important thing, not only valid, it affected the nations of the world, like it's a big fat deal. So the Rebbe is obviously masking that he's B'chazkas Mashiach, and that he fulfills the qualifications, and that there's a Psak that he needs to finish doing the rest of the job. So to all the people wondering, Additionally, the Rebbe elsewhere says that he's B'chazkas Mashiach, whatever, separate conversation. Now, technically speaking, just for accuracy's sake, what it says in the Sikha is the Rebbe is quoting the part of the Psak that the time of the Geula has come. And the Rebbe is saying, what does that mean that the time of the Geula has come? And there the Rebbe brings the Rambam, that this entire sequence of events that the Rambam describes, beginning with B'chazkas Mashiach, until the Maimed of, because that was the point that the Psak Din, that the Rebbe was already B'chazkas Mashiach, he should finish the job and do the rest. And that's the Rebbe's point. That it's now the time when this entire series of events is unfolding. The Cheskas, the Vadai, the whole thing. The Psak is that now that is happening. This is the time when that series of events that the Rambam describes is meant to occur.
The Psak Din is essentially saying that it's the green light. It's giving the green light.
Now, this is very much in sync with the thing I was just mentioning a second ago in Shemais. The Yehiratz, and the Rebbe says at the end of the Sikh and Shemais, the Rebbe says, Yehiratz, may it be God's will. That after we already have somebody that is already the presumed Mashiach, is already B'chazkas Mashiach, he should very soon become Mashiach Bavade through fulfilling the rest of the criteria. So these match up very, very well. But that just explains, the Rebbe is not saying that he's already Mashiach Bavade. He's not even saying that he's already B'chazkas Mashiach. I mean, it's obvious, you look at the Psak, that's what the Psak is. But just say what he's saying.
Right.
Right, that is what the Psak is saying. But what the Rebbe is saying in this paragraph is that the time of the Geula is here right now, and now is the time for this entire series until and including Mashiach Bavade. Not just the beginning. The whole thing should happen.
What's amazing, right? What's amazing is that this is all the Rebbe is saying through the Psak.
Yes, right, correct. Talking about it, making a Psak about it, this is what made the difference. You see the past.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Let's wait for the Geula to come. Who cares? What's the point of talking about it? What's the point? No. The fact that they were talking about it and they made the Banamos, the Koich of Tzeret, that they made a Psak about it, that changed it. But I can say also in a small way, when we're talking about it, the Rebbe is telling us the whole Sikha, we're not making a Psak, so we should learn a lesson from it. This is important. This is relevant. People say, who cares? No. It really, truly matters. The Geula has to happen in our minds and hearts if it's to pan out in real life.
Right, it's very important. And many people ask, why is it important? It's important because, like the Rebbe says over here, that the hachlata of making bidding the surgeons and plasters is that it came from themselves, that they themselves decided, and that's the same. That's the whole thing. The whole thing is, Geula is done through us. It has to be through us.
Before we talk about the Arum of the Sikha, I just want to end off with in short. At the end of the Sikha, because we have to mention it. The Rebbe says, "All you want to say what it says?"
No.
The Rebbe says, I was speaking there about miyad mamish. They always ended off every break with take off miyad mamish. Take off miyad mamish. Immediately, miyad means immediately, and mamish means actually. But the joke always was that mamish is the Rishatevis is an acronym of the Rebbe's name, Mem Shin. And
joke of not the Lubavitchers.
Correct. People would make fun of that. It was a thing.
People make fun. Yeah.
The Rebbe is referring to himself. And in this Sikha, the Rebbe says in the recording actually there was a recording of the Rebbe spoke during the week and the Rebbe spoke on Shabbos. The Rebbe actually says all the Pirushim and all the Rosh Hashanah of Mamish. We should have all the and all the little Rosh Hashanah of Mamish. And the Rebbe also says, and this is printed, the Rosh Hashanah of Miyad. And the Rebbe says, what's Miyad? It's Moshe Yisrael David, Moshe Rabbeinu Yisrael the Baal Shem Tov, and David. But the Rebbe also says, in our generation, in the order closest to us, it stands for Mashiach, whose name is Menachem. It's one of the opinions of the Gemara, the Moshiach Now is Menachem. The Rebbe says, you know what Miyad stands for? In the order closest from our generation going back, it's Mashiach, whose name is Menachem, Yosef Yitzchak, and Dov Ber. That's the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe is printing this. If you're wondering if the Rebbe encouraged the notion that he's Mashiach or not. Coming after this entire Sikha, talking about how because of 770 being the center of the world and the Rebbe coming to America, that's why the UN is here and that's why there is effect and there's biblical prophecies being fulfilled that Mashiach is affecting through him sending out shluchim around the world. If you're wondering what's, and yeah. And the Rebbe says, Mashiach, whose name is Menachem, Yosef Yitzchak and Deber. And then the Rebbe says in the Sikha, what is that? In all the Pirushim of Mamish. So this is just wild stuff. I feel if we're going to talk about the Sikha, we have to mention that.
Yes, we have to mention that.
That happened. That is a thing that occurred.
Yeah. So
Anyways, yes.
So going back to what's happening in Eretz Yisrael, there's been many statements by the cabinet of the American, cabinet members, the secretaries of states and secretaries of different places, and even the president himself. And most importantly, from the president himself, saying things like, if all the hostages are not out by 12 o'clock, a few Shabbosim ago, the president said, and many other things like it's terrible what's going on, it's very, very bad. They have to immediately send all the hostages out, or else hell will rain down. And he keeps on saying these things, and nothing happens. There's nothing happening. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is literally undermining Trump. And you see, there are people that are responding to Trump's not threats. Yeah, these are threats, saying that by 12 o'clock, if all the hostages are not out, hell is going to rain down. There are people that are like, well, 12 o'clock came, Trump didn't do anything. President Trump knows how much his words matter. He understands the value of making a threat and following through. And even more so, the value of being unpredictable. Right? A story that I heard many times about with Putin, that President Trump, to prevent the Ukraine war, told Putin, Vlad,
Vlad, I'm gonna bomb the bleep out of you if you touch Ukraine.
Right, if you incur even like a little bit of incursion, I'm going to bomb Moscow. And Vlad is like, no, you won't. And Trump is like, but I might. Right, just that 5% that he might is Trump's whole bargaining chip. That's how he runs the world. And yet, when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, not only once, but time and time again, he keeps saying how hell is going to rain down. Hell is going to rain down. This is terrible. If they don't give all the hostages, and nothing happens. And for me, when he said about the 12 o'clock thing, that if all the hostages are not out by 12 o'clock, he said, we're going to go with what Israel does.
Right, he left it in their hands, because,
What I'm learning out from that...
No other country does he do that. No other nation. Never has such a thing.
Not only that, but
every
keeps
other
doing
country
it.
Tells
he keeps
them,
doing it.
You're gonna take it and you're gonna be happy. You're gonna do it. I tell you, and you're gonna be happy about it. Whatever
Correct.
it is.
Correct. So what's the whole point? The lesson is that just like this, the Geula is the exact same thing. It's in our hands. The Rebbe tells us how the world is ready, and the world is showing us that the world is ready, and all these things. But at the end of the day, as long as our eyes are not open, as long as we're not doing the work ourselves, as long as we're not the ones that are willing to take the support that the Goyim are giving us, that the world is giving us, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
The president of the United States of America is not going to fight Israel's wars. They're going to support us when we do, but we have to fight the war.
We need to make it happen.
Exactly. And so with the Geula, the exact same thing. It has to be us. Mashiach is not going to come and pull us out. I'm sorry. I mean, we hope that it's going to happen.
Eventually he will, but enough of us need to get the point, apparently.
Correct.
No excuses, and maybe she needs to take us out of Galus right now.
Correct.
But the process, it seems, what needs to happen is that we need to get the...
it has to be us. We have to... If we don't... Then Mashiach can give us sign after sign after sign that he's here and that he's ready to take us out and all these things. As long as we're sitting on our tachases and we're blind to the reality, it's just going to... another miracle is going to come and go. Miracles upon miracles upon miracles is dependent on our... Are we awake? Are our eyes open? Are we conscious to the fact that it's happening and these are real things and these are not things that are showing us how close we are. These are things showing us that we're in it. Trump is supporting us now. We can win the war now. Right now is when it's happening. Right now it needs to happen. It needs to happen right now.
It's amazing.
I heard. It's crazy, and every single time, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, just said again how it's terrible what's going on, and we're going to rain hell on Hamas, and yet nothing happens. Why does nothing happen? Because at the end of the day, it boils down to the Yidden. The Yidden, like the anti-Semites, they tell us to our faces that we control the world, and it's true. We have the power to control the world. We have the power to change the world.
All that anti-Semites.
We have to do it. It's.
I was watching some of CPAC, and there's so many conservative. I couldn't watch all of it. Obviously, it's too much. But this because there's a 3-4 day, I don't know, a conservative convention, like 8 hours of content. Whatever, it's crazy. Bunch of speakers the whole day. And speaker after speaker after speaker, everyone talks about Israel. Like, I was imagining, if you're an anti-Semitic conspiracy theorist who thinks that Israel bought out like the whole America and we're controlled by Israel, you must be watching this and like ripping your hair out. Like, but the truth of the matter is, everyone recognizes that the Jewish people are the good guys. We're the people of the book. We are God's chosen people. Like, this is like they're the ones who need to win. They're the ones who represent everything good in the world. We're a light onto the nations. That's why it's so clear to all these Christians that this is important to be on Israel's side. No, it really is amazing. We were saying before about how Trump treats Israel differently, but everybody else, he threatens everyone and gets stuff done. He's unpredictable. I heard that who is it? Whoever, I forgot which member of his cabinet, but he was telling over what happened. He said he goes into Trump and the Oval Office, and he's talking to him, and they show him, oh yeah, there's this ISIS thing, whatever, some cave with a bunch of ISIS guys over there. He was like, and you
Sebastian
knew about
Gorka.
Sebastian Gorka? Oh, what's his official position?
He's an advisor or something.
He's something now in the administration, yeah. National security advisor. Maybe national security advisor. I don't know. Anyways, so he's like, Trump is like, so we know about this? He's like, so bomb it. Like, get rid of it. He took a big marker, made a big X on it. Boom! They bombed it to kill the guy, whoever it was. They took care of it. Like, he has no problem getting stuff done, and the fact that he does that gives him credence that he might do it because he does do that,
And yet he's willing. Yeah. He's willing to undermine all of that, because at the end of the day, it's in the hands of the Yidden. Their own salvation, their own Yeshua is in our hands. We have to save ourselves. No one's going to save us. Everybody's going to support us, but we have to do it. It has to be us. We have to open our eyes, and you can't. And what bothers me so much is that we just obfuscate. We just we just put the responsibility on other people. And yes, the Eibishter does not have any excuses. He has to send out. He has to bring us to the Geula Ha'amitzvah Shlema. Take it from Yad Mamish. It has to be now. It has to be now. There's no excuses for the Eibishter. But when we're talking about what we have to do, when we're talking about our responsibilities, our responsibility is to do it, is to open our eyes, to recognize it, and to be mekabel, to accept, to bring it in, to usher it in. Like the Rebbe says to Mordechai Eliyahu, that it's standing al saf adeles, it's on the doorstep.
Yeah.
You just have to open it. It's and what's amazing is that it's minimal. The effort that we have to do, it's minimal. It's just a mind shift. It's just looking at the world in a tiny, literally change your wording a little bit, and the entire world
you
changes.
See today how much different wording, how much of an effect wording has. People say, "Oh, who cares to change it to the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico?" Or genders, calling people whatever they want. No. The way you talk is the way you think and the way you see the world. It makes a big difference. Speech is so important. Dibur, it changes your machshava. It's very connected.
And that's why. It's and that's why. In addition to opening your eyes and recognizing, you have to do things b'dibur. You have to say. You have to be makabel pnei Mashiach tzidkenu. You have to do kabbalas hamalchus, not only in writing, not only in your mind, but also b'dibur. You have to say words. You know, this thing of why do we have to say yechi? What do you mean why you have to say yechi? Because that is how, for millennia, that is how every single king in the history of the world, not just Yiddish kings, but lahavdil, even Goyish kings, the same words were said by every single coronation, the exact same words, just in different languages and different, how many words itself. Long live the king. Really? Really? Why is it so important to say? Really? Why is it so important to say Yechi? Well, because Mashiach is a king, right? You don't want to say Yechi Adonai Merinu v'Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach Le'olam Vad. Say Yechi Melech HaMashiach Le'olam Vad. Fine, but the words have to be said. You have to say the words. You have to do the action. You have to write. You have to sign. You have to give money to the expansion of 770. You have to give money to the building of a palace for Mashiach. You have to speak. You have to speak words to other people.
Podcast.
Donate to the Greeting Mashiach podcast. Yes, these things are not free. I mean, for us, this costs money. But my point is that these are things that you have to be proactive. You can't just expect to sit on the side and have these things happen. Why do we do Torah mitzvahs? We do Torah mitzvahs because these are actions that we need to do. Sheva al Tasa is very minimal. There's things that you have to do. You have to do things. Right? In order to bring Shabbos, in order for Shabbos to thing, yes, Shabbos does come in, but you have to do things also. You have a chiyuv to light candles. You have to
prepare.
Daven,
you need to,
have to say the words.
You
need to do things. Judaism doesn't just, the world doesn't just flow by itself. You have to do things. There's reasons why we have mitzvahs. It's crazy that it's not upgelegt. It's not self-understood. Because if you understand the basic tenets of Judaism, if you understand the basic way the world works, according to halacha, according to Torah, according to Chassidus, this is obvious. What we're saying is obvious. What the Rebbe said is obvious. The only thing that is not obvious is where we're holding in the whole picture. And that's why you need a Rebbe. That's why you need a Nasi. That's what the Nasi is for. The Nasi is there to tell you what the avodah of this generation is.
Yeah.
And you see that at certain years, certain time periods of our Jewish history, we didn't need a Nasi to do it because it was self-understood. The Nasi was there in less obvious way,
less clear.
Correct.
Role.
It was less obvious. But as we got closer to the Geula, as we got closer to when the time was coming, there needed to be people to guide us towards reaching the actual goal. And that's what the Nesiim came. That's why the Baal Shem Tov came to bring Chassidus into the world after the Arizal. The Arizal said it's a mitzvah to teach this Torah, to Megala Chassidus and Kabbalah into the world, because we were coming closer to the Elef HaShishi, to the time of Shabbos. And when Shabbos comes, you need to be ready. And how do you be ready? You get ready through doing the actions that the Nasi tells you to do at that time. And holding in the Dor HaShvi, holding in the 7th generation, where the Rebbe was where the Rebbe is the Nasi, and the Rebbe is telling us what we have to do, you can't pick and choose. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to do something else." That you don't have a choice. It's not your choice in the matter. You can't choose to do to not get ready for Shabbos. I mean, you could, but why would you do that? We're getting ready for Shabbos. Take a shower. Put on Shabbos clothes. You know, put the oven on Shabbos mode. Make sure the light in the fridge is not going to go on when you open the fridge. These are things that we have to be doing now. This is the call of the hour. Right now, we have to do things to greet Mashiach. And we have to do things b'dibur, we have to do things b'maaseh, we have to do things b'machshava. All of these things, it's again, I don't understand why it's not self-understood. I mean, I do, because being
we're in a
this
long
is the thing that we have
and
to
bitter
do.
gullus. That's at the Yitzhar is fighting his last fight. One more thing I want to
100%.
talk about. We're not going to get the rest of it because we're running out of time here. But we have to see something amazing. Well, first of all, the fact that Trump is settling this war that's been going on for 3 years in Russia and Ukraine, it seems that it's coming to a head, and he's making real progress. And he's saying, let's end this war. There's too much killing. It's too much fighting. This is exactly what Deb was talking about. This idea of this notion that no, we're not. He's, we're shutting it down. We're ending the war, and that's amazing. And people ask me, are you concerned that you make Trump too much into Mashiach? Like, you forget about who's really in charge. It's like, no, you're missing the point here. You learn the Sikha, you see what's really happening. The whole thing is the Rebbe the whole time. The Rebbe is saying everything going on the world stage. The whole thing, it's because of the Psaktin, it's because of the Shluchim, it's because of the Rebbe. You see, like, the spirit, like, yeah, the fact that Trump thinks this, and the fact that he's the president, and the fact that it's all Mashiach. Anyways, it's
again,
remarkable.
Everything.
So you have that, and one more thing is you have that Trump mentioned it. He's sitting in the Oval Office signing documents, whatever it was, and he mentions an offhand remark. Oh, by the way, I want to cut the defense budget in half of America, Russia, and China. We should all cut the defense budget in half. I don't know if you guys know how politics works, but that's not like a thing you say. That's not a thing. He's saying, yeah, we should all stop fighting. How about it? He floats this idea. Again, he's not going to do that probably, but this is the direction he'd like to go. That's crazy. That's mind-boggling. That this is what he wants to do. That this is the machshava. This is the way we're going. Another very interesting thing I saw about Trump this week is he says, Mashiach is Yaakov Kol Yisrael. He will compel all the Yid to follow the Torah mitzvahs. But a big thing about this is this whole sikha is the point that the nations of the world are going to be following tzedek v'yesher, going to be following Torah. That's the whole thing with the sikha. And I saw a parallel of like Trump as being Yaakov Kol Ha'umim. He's doing his job as Mashiach's putting into his head. That's the whole idea, to do the same thing. And that was very interesting in this exchange. I don't know if it was that went on between the governor of Maine and Trump. That Trump made an executive order. He changed the federal law that there's men and women
Sports.
And they're separate, and it starts at conception that there's a man and a woman, and you can't switch it, and men cannot be in women's sports. None of this transgender nonsense, which is obviously a very big win for tzedek v'yesher and Torah and normalcy, zacher, nekeva, baraisam, etc. There's very big important things in Yiddishkeit. There's Havdalas. They ever fought all war on the Yehudi that there's a Yid, there's a guy. It's separate. There's day and night. There's Shabbos. So the things that are separate. It's very important.
There's things, yeah.
And so Trump is having a luncheon with all the governors, or a lot of the governors, and he says, "Oh, the governor of Maine is the governor of Maine here," and she's there, and he says, "I heard you're not going to comply with the federal order. You still have men winning trophies in women's sports." She says, "We'll comply with state and federal law." He says, "Well, federal law is that you can't do that." And she's like, "Well, whatever." He's like, "Well, I'm cutting off all federal funding to the entire state of Maine. You're going to have no federal funding." She says, "Oh, I'll sue you." He's telling the president. He says, "Okay, we'll see you. He said, we'll see you in court." He says, I'll be happy to it. This will be an easy one, and we'll win." He says, "You're not going to be in politics so much longer." He's putting us, as opposed to the previous administration that supported all this nonsense. Not only is he cutting it out, he's fired the people. He's telling them today. He's being Yochav Kol Ummim. He's saying, no, we're going to cut it out. I'm going to force you with whatever power I have to do the right thing. I'm going to make it happen. This force that's happening, and there's more goods coming, guys. Stay tuned. But certainly, what we see already from here, from this week, you look at the world around you. The Rebbe tells us we have to learn a lesson for what's going on. Look at what's going on. This is the continuation, and even greater, of the fulfillment of these prophecies. So it's up to us. We need to accept, greet Mashiach. It's happening. It's for real. Let's do it. Chia Melech.
ועד כדי כך המדב גולהום מהדר עם זול מחי זין יחי המלך.